Hey guys, subscribe for daily knife content, and if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for links to some great online retailers. There's also individual links for knives that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the 2017 Sharp by Design Micro Evo Typhoon. This is the production variant by Riot, not the custom one from Brian Nadeau, but it is designed by Brian Nadeau. This knife was sent to me by Aiden. Aiden, thank you so much for sending this guy along. It's because of people like Aiden that I'm able to bring you guys daily knife content. It's also because of my generous patrons. Thanks so much for supporting me right now. You can find a link for my Patreon right down in the description. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. So there was a recent release of these in 2020. They are largely unchanged other than some different blade shapes. You guys remember that I purchased my own 2017. This is the large size Evo Typhoon, also made by Riot. Mine's in the damaged steel. But this was the 2017 micro version. So the newer ones from 2020 have some different blade designs, but everything else is largely unchanged. And this is a version that I wanted to check out because even though it's not available, not where you can go purchase it brand new, either the 2017 model or the 2020 variant, the secondary market exists, and these are pretty popular. So I thought, for some people, this is going to be a beneficial video, but not for everybody. Let's go ahead and get a measurement of this guy. Overall length is coming in. I was looking for my tape measure. Overall length is coming in at 6.75 inches overall. Blade length is coming in, under 3 inches, so that's pretty cool. Just barely shy. It's like 2.9 on the dot. And then your cutting edge is about 2.75 inches overall. Let's go ahead and do, first off, a size comparison up against the large size Evo Typhoon. As you can see there, that's roughly what you're looking at the difference. For a smaller knife, me personally, I don't like really small knives, but this is actually carryable for me for a number of different reasons, and I'll talk with you guys about that here shortly. I do love my full-size one, yeah, there it is up against the full-size variant. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons up against some other common knives. The Ontario Rat Model 1 and Rat Model 2. I'm going to scoot these up just a little bit. This knife is actually a little bit shorter than the Rat Model 2, but the cutting edge is almost exactly the same. Rat 2 has a little tiny bit more cutting edge. How about up against the Spyderco PM2 and Para 3? You can see here both Spyderco PM2 and Para 3 larger. Once again, though, the cutting edge is very similar. In fact, it's identical to the cutting edge on the Spyderco Para 3. And last but not least, the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue, and its little brother, the Benchmade Mini Griptilian. Mini Griptilian is coming in very similar, even though the Evo Typhoon is actually just a little bit shorter. And once again, the cutting edge is, Mini Griptilian has a little bit more cutting edge, but very similar. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check on this guy. We'll get out my tools. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the description. The hardware size on this guy is excellent. I believe it's the same as the large, and so everything is going to be, we're going to be really careful here because this guy's in great shape. Yeah, T8, that's going to be T8, and is the screw back here? No. The pocket clip screw, which is actually the one screw for the frame other than the pivot, this is actually going to be a T6, it looks like. We're going to check that just to be sure. Get out the T6 bit. No, it's bigger than that. Is it a T7? Okay. Let's give the T7 a shot. There's your T7. Yeah, that seems to be a T. That's weird. I wonder if I just didn't get the T8 head in all the way. We're going to try the T8 head one more time. Okay, yeah, I'm just stupid. That's T8. Sorry about that. It's exactly the same as the hardware that's on the larger guy. But the head, the overall size of the head is smaller on the little guy. but the actual bit size is still T8. It's also interesting that the pocket clip on the smaller one is actually shorter. Everything else is the same though. The pivot looks to be the same size. The screw for the insert appears to be the same size. So yeah, there you go. Okay, that's interesting. We learned something today. Let's go ahead and do carry profile. So thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. This guy's about the same thickness. These are contoured scales. It's about the same thickness as the Spyderco Para 3. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. You can see here, even including the flipper tab, nowhere near as tall, nowhere near as long as either of them. Let's take a look at the inside here. You can get my flashlight right down in the description. No milling on the inside. I don't think it's really necessary. Materials, we are looking at M390 for the blade, titanium, and in this case, micarta. There were a number of different inlay materials, and some of them had no inlays. It was just titanium. The ones with inlays, it's important to point out, are sub frame locks where the lock actually goes underneath the overlay. Some of them were all exposed frame locks, meaning the cutout was visible all the way down to the relief cut, right? So it depends on which version you find. Weight on this guy, I'm going to guess that this guy does not come in at a super heavy weight. 2.75, oh, 2.47 ounces. Yeah. That's ultra lightweight on this channel. Anything that's under 3 ounces, whether it's 1 ounce or it's 2.9 ounces, I just don't really care because it all feels like super lightweight to me. Did I mention that this is from the Knife Nuts podcast? If you guys have never checked out the Knife Nuts podcast, this is designed by Brian the Doe, who is one of the 4 hosts of the podcast. I actually recently was on an episode, but don't go there for me. Go there because they're awesome and the podcast is awesome. You guys should definitely check it out. So yeah, I don't know. I wasn't sure if I had mentioned that or not. All right, so I think we've gotten through everything. Let's go ahead and talk about the anatomy here. So these are built by Riot, and if you guys, I've talked about the 2017 large version. I've talked about the new 2020 large version. Look, these are excellent. I'm going to do the rest of the review, but there's essentially nothing wrong with this knife. The large version, I think, is one of the most perfectly designed folding knives that exists. There's very little to complain about. The small version is essentially the same thing. It's just smaller. There were a few different blade shapes, including like a drop point. This is the Japanese Tanto. On the 2020 variant, at least for the large one, they had like the harpoon, which was harpoon and combination Japanese Tanto. Then they had the clip point. People always want to know, is the slot accessible because of the design, because of the lines? No, it's really just an aesthetic thing, which is fine because the flipper tab works perfectly. It's beautifully shaped, in my opinion. It looks like it's going to be super sharp, but as you can see, it's nicely knocked down on the corners. There's really just one way to lay your finger on this. You push down and it fires. Part of that is because the design is excellent. Part of it is because Riot has excellent production quality. Some of the best production quality you can possibly find in this price range. And then a lot of it has to do with the special detent system that is on Brian Nadeau's knives. There's instead of a traditional ball, it's a sort of, I wonder if we can get in there on this guy and see. Yeah. It's like a lip of steel instead of a ball. And that works beautifully. It's very distinct and it's very unique. There is a distinct break of the detent and it snaps into place each and every time. It also feels great coming down. It is, in a lot of ways, the same idea as a traditional detent ball. It just feels better. I don't know how to describe it. It just feels better. I mean, you pull down on that flipper tab and this thing is going to flip, especially these ones with the inlays that cover up the frame lock, because you can essentially put your hands wherever you want and it's going to flip. It feels really good. Not quite falls shut, but I don't judge the quality of action on whether or not it falls shut. It is consistently smooth in all areas, up and down, and the action is nice and controlled on the way back down and not fall shut like it's going to come down on your finger. There is no double clutch because that detent lip is well up on the face of the blade by the time the flipper tab comes down and contacts your finger, giving you, kind of the signal to move your finger out of the way. And then vision factor on this guy is great. I could sit and flip this thing all day. There's just not an uncomfortable spot on it. The action is wonderful. Bearings are ceramic as far as I know. Feels like it. Really, really good. The inlay work on this is essentially perfect. It is not something where you can feel the seams. It's excellent. It's just flawless. That's the same way that mine is, this newer one. It just feels perfect. I've handled a lot of Riyadh knives, and Riyadh does a good job on all their stuff, but these just feel spectacular. It's the same thing that this is now the 4th one of these. I've handled a 2017 large, 2 2020 large variants, and now a 2017 small one, and they just feel perfect. They are so consistent, and you don't have to take my word for it. You know, if you go listen to other people talk about these knives, you're going to hear largely the same stuff. It's just really, really good. There is shouldering, deep shouldering on the blade. It wraps nicely around that stop pin there. Some nice jimping up here. Because of the freedom or the openness of the back end of this handle here, believe it or not, I can actually get a full purchase on this guy, making it one of very few small knives that I will actually carry. It's quite comfortable. Pocket clip is one of the most perfect pocket clips that has ever existed. I love this thing. Doesn't have any hot spots on it. There's nothing sharp here. Even the flipper tab, even being crunched up against the flipper tab, it's really pretty comfortable. Pretty nice. This is the satin finished blade. I think, did they do some, I can't remember in 2017 if they did some deal. These 2020 variants, they had some they were DLC, but sort of tumbled DLC. Look pretty good. Edges up here, the corners on the spine, a little bit sharp as we get out to the edge. That's just something that comes along with satin finished blades. Would have really liked a tumbled option on this, but there wasn't, so whatever. Truthfully, even if there was a tumbled option, I still would have went for Damasteel. This is not Damascus, it's Damasteel. Different stuff. Still would have went for Damasteel on this guy, so I'm happy with that. But anyways, on this guy, yeah, the swedge is beautiful. The fuller, as it, it's open right here, and then it continues all the way out to the nose. And we have this compound, sort of hollow initially and flat up front, Japanese-style Tanto blade. Looks beautiful. Honestly, this is a really versatile blade shape. You do technically have two. It is a different angle right here. So if you're sharpening it, you're going to have to sharpen this area and then switch some things up to get this. Maybe not. It just depends on what you're using and how adept you are at sharpening. For me, that's going to be an adjustment and kind of but okay, whatever. It's really not that bad. Not as aggressive as an American Tanto. Nice and thin behind the edge. Did we measure blade stock thickness on this guy? I don't think we did. Let's go ahead and do that here real quick with my freshly re-batteried calipers. So blade stock thickness on the Mini coming in at, it says 123 thousandths. Maybe the thickness is the same. No, this guy's got a little bit of a thicker blade stock. But yeah, totally reasonable thickness. That hollow ground portion of the blade is nice and thin behind the edge, and that's excellent. Then you have a little bit of excess durability out here because of the flat ground blade. Nice tip. The blade is done essentially perfectly. The final cutting bevel is even, and it looks fantastic. There's no belt burn or anything on the satin finish. I mean, everything just looks great. I really don't have any complaints about the blade at all. I mentioned this on the full-size version. I love how they do this rise and then it's lipped around the pivot. It's just nice. It just looks good. It's such a silly little thing to get hung up on, but I like that. It looks good. There's no other hardware being shown anywhere on the presentation side of this knife. This comes together like a seam, a lot like how ProTech knives come together. I think I personally would have preferred a standoff, but it's done so well that I don't know that I care that much. I mean, it just meets up perfectly. By the way, you can tell it is freaking laser centered. Oh my gosh, it's so perfect. People are like, okay, calm down, Complex. He's reviewed freaking 1,600 knives, and he's still like, just look how centered it is. Blah. Yeah. All right. Well, maybe I've gone a little bit crazy. There is a lanyard bar back here for people who like lanyards. Whatever. It's out of the way, so I can't complain. The pocket clip has a single screw. It is nested into the frame, which is excellent, and then the same screw actually holds the frame together back here, which is beautiful. It's so minimal. There's just, you pull the pivot out and you pull the screw out and you're there. If you need to take this apart, that's it. That's all you got to do. Pocket clip is wonderful, goes right along with the shape of the handle, or the overall profile of the blade. It just looks excellent. Nicely knocked down all the way around, even up here. Has a nice swoop and then continuous rise, which is exactly, that's what I always talk about. The reason that this is one of my favorite pocket clips is because it is done by, I mean, for what I look for, it's exactly right. It is easy in and out of the pocket with one hand, won't fray up your pants, doesn't have any sharp corners, doesn't have any screws that are in a position that are making it difficult to come in and out. It carries deep enough, doesn't have to be, you know, ultra deep carry, but it's not shallow, right? It's carrying right here. It's just perfect. Wonderful. The combination pocket clip and frame screw is just excellent, and they hide it over. Oh, I love that. Nice big screw for the steel lock bar insert. It's also got kind of that rise, that volcano lip thing going on. Same thing back here. The adjustment side is on the other side. It says BN on the flipper tab, which is, of course, for Brian Nadeau. Lockup on this guy. Still locking up about in the same place as my brand new one. I don't think these generally move very much. It's locking up at something like 20%. No blade play, up, down, left, or right. And as you guys saw earlier, the thing is absolutely perfectly centered. Sorry, my finger was on there. I don't want to make you guys think I'm pushing on it. It is absolutely perfectly centered. Yeah, this is more of the same from, you know, it's essentially exactly what I expected. I don't really have anything to complain about here, guys. This is essentially a flawless knife. Some people aren't going to like the satin finish. Some people aren't going to like that you can't access this hole right here to do your fidgety sort of reverse. You don't need to, though, because it's got a flipper tab. Some people aren't going to like that it's small. Well, they made a bigger one, right? Most people who have a problem with this are going to be complaining that it is not readily available for you to purchase and you have to go to the secondary market, which is honestly, in my opinion, the only issue. But I'm going to guess because of the success of the 2017 run and the success of the 2020 run, which is actually the 2021 run. People joke because of the transition, we didn't get them until 2021. I'm going to guess he'll maybe do another batch. I don't speak for him. I don't work for him, so that's not factual, but you should follow Brian Nadeau on Instagram, and you should follow all of the guys from the Knife Nuts podcast on Instagram to get updates on stuff like this. As of right now, your best bet at picking one of these up is the secondary market. Don't go pay an insane amount of money for this. When these were originally released, I think you could pre-order them if you paid in full for about $300, maybe up to $350 if you didn't pay in full. I think the newer ones are right around there, $350. It's right in that area. So if you find a nice used one on the secondary market, and I say used, like maybe if it's in great shape or maybe totally unused, and that's right around what they want for it, yeah, it's going to be worth it. If they're asking $400, $450, no, don't do that. Don't entertain those people, right? If it's been used, they should be asking a little bit less than what they originally went for, right? But yeah, don't entertain people who are trying to make a buck off of you. That's not, you know, this is absolutely right around that $300 to $350 mark. Now, I could be wrong about the initial price. Again, this is from 2017. They may have had a deal. If you paid in full, maybe it was a little bit less than that. But this is right around there, $300 to $350 all day. That is absolutely, you know, a price that I would entertain on this knife. This is excellent. I maintain that this is one of the best folding knife designs ever in the history of pocket knives. It is beautiful. It is functional. It is durable. It is excellent. Absolutely. I love this thing, and I would carry the small one. I can get a full grip on it. This is cool. This makes an excellent EDC knife, right? Does it do a whole lot more than other knives that are roughly the same size that cost substantially less? No, but nobody's laboring under the delusion that they're gaining some sort of tactical or utilitarian advantage by spending an additional $300 on something like this over this. People buy stuff like this because it's nice, because it's made well, because it has those extra features that might only be valuable to the enthusiast or the enthusiast combination, user combination collector, right? Whatever. You're not informing anybody by going, you can get the same thing, you can get the same task done with a rat. Oh, don't you know? Oh gosh, someone needs to inform these poor people. No, we know. Shut up. We know. People are interested in things like this because they are, above and beyond. Because all of the little, teeny, tiny little elements that we look for that are, sometimes show up as flaws on less expensive knives, right? In the case of this knife, all of those things are just packed into this narrow little zone that we label as perfection, and that is so satisfying. And there are plenty of people, including myself, who will pay this type of money for this type of object. And if you didn't know, knives get way more expensive than this. I don't know why I feel it. If I'm going to do this type of rant, I think it's important that I do it at the end, where there's only like 7 or 8 people still watching, right? But yeah, is it worth the money? Absolutely. This is great. Thank you again to the gentleman who sent this in for review. This is great. I'm glad that I can add this to my library of reviewed knives. This will be going on my, it'll actually be going on 3 playlists. It'll be going on my recommended knives playlist. Oh, I'm sorry, 2 playlists. My recommended knives playlist and my favorite knives of all time, because it absolutely is right alongside its bigger brother, the full-size Evo Typhoon. Make sure to follow me on Instagram, guys. Make sure to check out the Knife Nuts podcast and follow Brian the Doe and the other gentlemen who are part of that show. So that you can stay updated on these and other models that are released by Brian the Doe. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. If you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.